What's up, guys? I'm Chris Carpenter with Story Real Estate, and today on the Story Real Estate Business Highlight, we're going to the Storm Cellar. I'm here with Austin Storm, the owner of the Storm Cellar. Austin, tell us about the creation story behind the Storm Cellar.
My wife, Laura, and I started the Storm Cellar in 2009. We had just gotten married and she had a job, but I didn't.
Okay.
So she said, you should do something entrepreneurial. You always have these business ideas you're talking about. And the worst thing that can happen is that you fail and we lose our very meager life savings at the time. Trying it and failing was better than not trying it and always wondering what would happen if we had done that. And a couple years later, it was going well enough that she could quit her job, and we've been doing it ever since.
And how did you choose Consignment for that first business venture?
Yeah, it was half practical because with Consignment, we don't pay for the inventory up front, and we were flat broke when we started.
Yeah.
So Consignment was a good way of getting inventory for retail without actually having to pay for it up front. But the other thing that we wanted is for people to feel like they were a part of the business. And it also lets us carry inventory that reflects the diversity of the people in Moscow. So there's all kinds of distinct groups in Moscow. There are students who come from all over the place that bring things that you wouldn't normally see in Moscow.
Yeah.
And we love having that reflected in the stuff that we carry.
Have you guys been in this location your entire time?
No, we actually started in a little spot down the street. We started where Mad Greek is now, and we were there for a year. And when I moved to Moscow, this was the Goodwill. So this was always our dream location. And when our lease was up, we were looking for a bigger location, just couldn't find it. And the day that we were supposed to renew our lease, this space became available. Wow. So we moved here and we've been here ever since.
Okay. What's one of your favorite things about being a small business owner in downtown Moscow?
Yeah. Moscow can be a polarized place, but there's really an atmosphere in Moscow of community over competition. The barrier to entry is so much lower than it would be in a big city. Sure. So you don't have to have like a ton of capital. There are still opportunities to start something that's just based on, a singular vision. So something that having the Storm Cellar has allowed us to do is start other businesses. So we started Hansel and Gretel, which is a kids consignment store that's a sort of a version of this concept, but for kids. And then after running that for a number of years, we sold it to some new owners. And we also had the opportunity to redevelop a downtown building, which is now the home of Lodgeful and Humble Burger. Wow. And all those are opportunities that came out of us doing the Storm Cellar. Our latest thing is Bully for You, which is in the town where we live, Colfax, Washington, which is secondhand furniture and home decor. And we got a little bit of clothes out there too. And that's been a blast to do that as well. What
inspired you guys to get into secondhand furniture and that sort of thing?
We love shopping secondhand. So when we were college students, we were too poor to afford a lot of things. So secondhand shopping was kind of a way of life. What you get with secondhand that you don't necessarily get with new retail is like the serendipity, the feeling of discovery. Things are going to be different every time, and you never know what you're going to find. The Storm Cellar is kind of translating the thrift experience, but making it a little bit more curated. So instead of hunting for gems, the gems have already been selected for you, and you're just finding the thing that works for you. And that's the ethos that translates to Bully for You. It's like finding cool secondhand furniture and home goods.
Tell me about what inspired the name.
Yeah, growing up, actually my grandparents had a vintage furniture business. And it was called the Serendipity Cellar. I was like, what if we call it the Serendipity Cellar? And she pointed out that not everyone might know what serendipity is. So we decided to go with the Storm Cellar because we loved the pun.
Let's say it's my first time coming into the Storm Cellar and I want to either purchase or do some consignment of my own clothing. Where do I start?
Allow for some time because of that discovery. It takes some hunting. It can be sensory overload when you come in because there's so much to see. But we hope that even if people don't find something to buy, that they enjoy the experience of looking at the stuff. And then on the consignment side, we love selling stuff for people. And the thing that we always tell people is that we're not passing aesthetic or personal judgment on people when they bring in stuff. We try to be really sensitive to what our customers are looking for, and that determines what we try to consign for people.
Thanks for joining us for this Story Real Estate Business Highlight. For more insider community content, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And as always, have a wonderful day.